Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second installment of Thinking Your Way to Chess Mastery. And today we'll be going inside a very specific variation that's popular at top levels, the exchange variation of the Grunfeld defense. Using our methods of approaching a chess position and trying to figure out the best move, we'll try to understand this specific variation by looking at two top-level games. The first top-level game is going to be a game that just happened at the U.S. Championship in St. Louis. Playing white was Grandmaster Vinay Bhatt, and playing black was veteran Grandmaster Sergei Kudrin. Let's look at the first few moves. d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, d5. This defines the Grunfeld. And white goes for the sharpest treatment. cd, knight takes d5, e4, establishing a pawn center. Now, after the black exchange knight c3, b takes c3, white obviously has a pawn center. But if you're inspecting the position, remembering our process of inspection, where do black's counter chances lie against the pawn center? Hypermodern theory tells us that black's chances lie in either immobilizing the pawn center, that is, putting the pawns on the wrong squares from white's point of view, then blockading them, or entirely destroying the center by pressure from the wings. Let's see how the next few moves go, which are pretty logical. Black completes his fianchetto. White gets his bishop to the most active diagonal, which was favored by Spassky. Notably, Spassky beat Fischer once in a famous game. Black immediately strikes at the center, and white bolsters the center knight e2 without worrying about the knight f3, bishop g4 later on pin variations. Castles, knight c6, bishop e3. Black attacks the center and white defends it. Black gets his bishop out. White unpins. And black attacks white's bishop in return. This position has been seen very often. And in the old world championship between Karpov and Kasparov, Karpov tried bishop takes f7 a couple of times. But in the last analysis, black's knight has the juicy c4 square to pop into, and white has splintered pawns, and top-level theory considers that to be nothing at this point. Bhatt plays the more normal bishop d3, and after cd, bishop e6, it's very tempting for white to sacrifice the exchange with d5, although that hangs the rook. The reason being, white's going to get counterplay on the long diagonal. Bhatt went ahead and did it, and black should accept, and he does take at the rook. White takes back. Now inspect the position. Many hundreds of games of theory consider this to be equal. We're not going to dispute that, but we're going to try to understand what's going on. First of all, there's a pin on the d file. That's an inspection point you should notice. So white is not threatening to immediately take the bishop. That means black has a free move, but he has to worry about a threat for white. Do you see it? The threat is bishop to h6, threatening mate on g7 with the queen and the rook simultaneously. Therefore, theory considers f6 to be black's best, since the bishop on e6 is not really hanging yet. In the Bhatt game, Bhatt played his bishop out to h6, which is a well-known move. Black puts his rook on a passive square, but out of danger. Now white brings the queen out to d4. This move is questionable because white in this variation is trying to blast open lines to black's king. What is white's chief attacking idea? Well, in most positions, the chief attacking idea is going to be e4 to e5, blasting open the long diagonal. However, in this position, white is giving black a tactical opportunity. Let's see it. Black retreats the bishop. White continues to try to blast open with e5. But as we're about to see, black seizes this opportunity to trade queens. So the answer was, if you're trying to attack on the long diagonal, you're going to need to preserve the white queen. Once the queens are off, there's no danger for black. Now, having said that, this isn't bad for white because white missed a hidden resource in the next few moves. Let's just see that hidden resource, which is instructive, and then look at a second game to better understand how white should play. let's be clear. At this point, white has at best a draw. White took the queen off. Black took back. White establishes a powerful pawn wedge. Black puts the bishop out on a4 rather than entomb it on c8. White attacks the bishop, and black has to put his pawn on b5, and black's formation looks very strange. The b5 pawn is stuck defending the bishop, and the bishop on a4 has no squares. Having said that, white's queen is missing, and there's no simple way to attack. In this particular position, Bott took on b5, but he came to regret that because the material win liberated the remainder of black's pieces, and black went on to win a rather long, arduous ending. Let's go back to this position. This is an instructive moment. If you were white and you were facing this rather unpleasant situation, do you see any resource that might save the game? It's rather hidden, and I'm not going to say it right now, but I'll talk about it in the article on chess.com. I already have the article posted under Thinking Your Way to Chess Mastery series. And this is going to be an important moment because many players get discouraged when they're down material and rush to regain some material, as Bott did, but the position actually offers a hidden resource. The key is to improve coordination of white's pieces. Black's a little uncoordinated right now, and if white can maximally coordinate his remaining pieces, he has chances to salvage the game. I'm going to leave it alone for the time being and go on a few moves with Bott's mistaken knight takes b5 and just play a few more moves because we're going to get to another point. Black exploits the pin. White defends the pawn. Black retreats the bishop. White moves his rook to an open line. Black does the same. White protects his bishop. Black attacks the bishop on d2. White retreats. f5. And now this is another instructive moment. In the game, white retreated the bishop with bishop to d3, and after knight e3, unfortunately, the center pawn was dropping off. Black eventually won. If we go back to this position, if you look at it, white's in desperate throws, but it's salvageable with a rather surprising continuation. If you list the features of the position, you may be able to deduce what white's best try is. I'm not going to do the rest of the actual game, which was a long ending loss, because it's not relevant to the understanding the opening. So I've left you with two puzzles. What does white do best move after 27 moves? And also, previously, more fundamentally, does white have better than his move knight takes b5? He played knight takes b5, but there's better. Okay, let's leave that game alone for the time being and see a more accurately played game. Here we go. This game was a top-level game but played between Kurt Hansen, a 2600 plus grandmaster from Denmark, as white, and Luke McShane, a 2600 plus grandmaster from England, in Malmo 2003. The first moves are identical to Bott Kudrin. By now you should realize it's a familiar situation where white tries to build a center and black systematically tries to destroy it. We reach the same exchange sacrifice, reaching the same game as Bott Kudrin, the same bishop h6, the same rook e8. Now white plays more accurately with king h1. That eliminates any kind of idea to play queen b6 to trade the queens. Rook c8, knight f4, bishop d7. Now white plays the e5 move under more favorable circumstances. However, that's not the end of the story, because black reels off a series of well-known theoretical moves, starting with knight c4, hoping to blockade on f6 if white were to take. However, white makes the pawn wedge with e6, as you know already in the Bott game, and black puts his bishop out where it remains somewhat active. The question is, can white get through to the king? The only way is to sacrifice and see what happens. We reach a long theoretical line after hg, bishop g6, knight e5 defending against the bishop f7 threat, and white plays his bishop back to e4. White's goal, of course, is to bring the queen over somehow to deliver mate. Black's king is looking lonely, but black is up a rook. A very sharp situation has arisen, and black plays bishop c2, theoretically recommended to eliminate white's attacking piece. White goes ahead and exchanges to gain time to bring the queen closer to the black king. Still theory, and black now plays his king to h7, attacking the bishop, and white attacks black's knight. Black takes the bishop, white takes the knight, and this, believe it or not, is important theory. This shows you how long theory goes in the Grunfeld. Look at the position for a second from black's shoes and see if you can inspect the position listing black's defensive resources. Although he is a lone king, black does, he has an extra rook and a weak white back rank, so white can't easily mobilize the queen and remaining rook without making time to make luft for the king. In the game, black played rook c4. That is actually a bad move, although it looked normal to somehow help defend along that rank. The actual saving move, I'll leave it as an exercise to the reader, but it involves leaving the rook on c2 where it is. The best play would be a draw. But I want to show you after rook c4, white plays very systematically now to get at the king. He starts by attacking the rook, black defends it. He then creates two passed pawns in the center, and it doesn't give black time to consolidate as follows. He plays the pawn up. If the rook were to take on e6, that would lose to the simple queen h3 check, double attack. So black can't take the pawn, and therefore the two pawns are paralyzing. Black retreats the king to gain extra support for the f6 square, but white has time for queen check, king over, queen check, just improving. And then he places queen over. He's just toying with black. He's going to infiltrate further with queen h5, possibly. Black sees nothing better than the king move. And then queen to d5. The pawns are mobile, and white can play slowly by making luft and then continuing the attack. Black is actually helpless here and is dead lost. A very nice demonstration of pawns dominating a rook. Black tries to defend. White simply makes room. Black has nothing better than to play a random pawn move. White gives a check, king back, gives a check, and it's time to play the rook, activating it, threatening mate. Black defends the mate. White just gobbles another pawn. The king is completely naked and helpless. Black tries to defend, but to no avail. After the subsequent power moves, black is helpless against white's continued infiltration. A very nice demonstration of white's logical play. The concluding move was rook c5, desperation, rook f7, delivering mate next move. For example, king h6, rook h7 mate. An excellent example of white's potential. If you're a student of opening theory, you're going to want to go back, as I said, to the position where black played the lemon rook c4 because he has a draw. It's not a simple draw. You're going to need to look at it maybe with a chess engine, but in this position, black actually is equal. That's not a bad advertisement for white's opening. In fact, the opening, even if it's worked out to a draw, it doesn't guarantee black's going to know it. Many players in the year 2003, 2004 won games in this line until the line was pretty much diffused with black's improvement here on move 27, which is a draw. The bot game, I'm not sure what happened. When the queens went off, white was already fighting for a draw. But if you recall the earlier comments, he missed two nice drawing possibilities. So I'd like you to use our thinking techniques to inspect characteristics of the position, to understand what each side's goals are, and then try to infer the best move based on your inspection. Double check your work and then decide on the best move. That's it for now. This was a in-depth look at the Grunfeld. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, and talk to you later.